Funding for the Hinckley Report is made possible in part by the George S. and Dolores Story Eccles Foundation and the Cleone Peterson Eccles Endowment Fund.
Tonight on the Hinckley Report, the president plans to visit Utah and shrink 2 of our national monuments. What does this controversial move mean for the future of our public lands? Governor Herbert's influence over the courts grows with the appointment of a new Supreme Court justice. What will her appointment mean for the court and for the state? Indictments are issued over Russia's involvement in the 2016 election. What does this mean for the Trump administration and their legislative agenda? Where do our members of Congress stand on this issue? And with the November election around the corner, how will the dust settle on Utah's political landscape? Good evening and welcome to the Hinckley Report. I'm Jason Perry, director of the Hinckley Institute of Politics. Covering the week, we have Brian King, Utah House Minority Leader, Courtney Tanner, political reporter with the Salt Lake Tribune, and Steve Urquhart, former state senator. Glad to have you all with us. Let's jump into the big thing happening this week. We have an election on Tuesday. We talked about some of the candidates, but let's start first with the 3rd Congressional District, the person to replace Congressman Chaffetz. Mayor Curtis goes into this election with a 27-point lead. Let's start with you, Senator. Is this race done? Is anything going to happen to change that?
It's done. Mayor Curtis wins with big numbers. Jim Bennett added, my dear friend, I should say, added a great element, but I don't think that that's going to translate to a lot of votes.
Let's talk about that element. That's interesting. So we still see Mayor Curtis probably taking this. Let's talk about the Jim Bennett effect, Representative.
Well, Jim Bennett is with the third party, and that's something that I think Utahns are willing to some degree to entertain. But the numbers, for a third party candidate, those numbers are still very, very low. Kathy Allen presents some good credentials running as a Democrat. She's got great qualifications as an MD. She comes across as credible. She comes across as articulate and intelligent. And I think that's going to keep the third-party candidate from getting very far in this race.
Probably. You see that's the case. Do you see a time when a third party in the state of Utah, Courtney, does catch fire? Is that even possible?
You know, I think if there's a time, it's got to be coming up pretty quick here. I mean, you had Evan McMullen in this last presidential race who got 21%, and Jim Bennett got 9% in this poll. That's not wonderful, but this is a time for a middle ground.
Do you see, you've been in elected office, you've seen this, is the platform big enough for a third party to really make that change?
I think it depends on the issue. I think on some issues you've got room for a third party. On other issues it's pretty much where the Democrats and Republicans are, and it's hard for a third party candidate to eke out some sort of position that really is much different than one or the other.
Do you think this is just a really small view of what we're going to get in 2018? Because of course, let's say Mayor Curtis does win, he's got to do this all over again. Will we see Kathy Allen?
That's a good question. I don't know whether Kathy Allen's going to run again. I don't know what kind of resources she'll have at the end of this race. She had a lot of resources because when she was as a candidate against Jason Chaffetz, there were a lot of money that came from out of state to her coffers. We'll see whether that money is still available, any of it is left, and we'll see whether she wants to take another run at it next year.
Okay, so one thing is going to impact that next election is what happens with this Count My Vote initiative. And this week, the Utah Republican Party decided to drop their lawsuit. Senator Urquhart, why did they do that?
Because they don't have any money. They can't afford the lawsuit. It's being pushed by the hard right of the party, so I think the bulk of the party, they don't want any part of this anymore anyway. But even a win at the appellate court would mean a remand to district court, a lot more money. They can't afford it. They don't want to keep going.
Is this all about the money?
Oh, I think that's a huge part of it, yeah. I also think that, as Steve said, if they lose at if they win at the 10th Circuit, they're going to have to come back and spend more money. They don't want to do that. But if they lose face. And I think from listening to folks who heard the oral argument and have reviewed the briefs, their feeling is they're likely to lose at the 10th Circuit. And so if we're likely to lose, why not just pull the plug on it right now? And I think that's probably a wise strategic move.
But what's interesting in all of this is that now Chairman Rob Anderson is kind of being threatened. You know, people want to kind of kick him out for ending this lawsuit.
Well, that is an interesting aspect of this. When you talk about what side the Republican Party is on with this one, is they're threatening his ouster. But how do you think this impacts the initiative that is out in the field right now getting signatures? Does the drop of the lawsuit change that?
That's a great question. I don't know. And I think that the signature gathering process has such a high barrier to get on the ballot. I still think that there'll be enough people who will say, even if the lawsuit is dropped, that there are a lot of people within the conservative base particularly that will say, listen, we need to go back to the old way of having the caucus empowered. And so I think people will feel that they need to gather those signatures and get on the ballot to put an end once and for all for the uncertainty that comes with the legislature having to deal with this each session that goes by.
Listen, Senator, you were in the legislature when this compromise happened. With the initiative coming and the SB 54. What are legislators thinking right now, do you think? Lawsuit's gone, we have an initiative coming. Do they try to tweak it? Do they protect it during the next legislative session?
Well, what's the legislature going to do? That's a tough one to say. What I hope they do is they rally behind SB 54, which is a great compromise. You can take the typical delegate path to convention, or you can go directly to primary. That's a good compromise. I hope that they work with the Count My Vote initiative folks and just say, look, we agree, we will abide by this agreement as long as we can. We can't bind future legislatures, but we like this compromise. Let's all just settle here.
I agree with Steve. I think it is a good compromise. I like SB 54. The real problem, though, is that you keep having people go to the legislature year after year and try and get them to change it somewhat, jigger it around a little bit. And that frustrates people who want some certainty, frustrates people who are concerned that you're going to have those caucuses re-energized in a way that really shifts power within each of the parties to the more extreme base. And that's a good concern.
Yeah. Oh, let's talk about one more thing with this election. Courtney, the reports out suggest that maybe we're having low voter turnout this year. 18% of the mail-in ballots are in right now. What are you seeing out there and hearing in terms of people being willing to actually come to the polls?
Yeah, this is an unusual election with the municipal and the special election congressional kind of combined. So initially we thought, bigger turnout, more people, but this slower turn on ballots kind of throws that into whack. You could see really long lines on Tuesday at some of these clerks' offices, so that's a possibility.
Well, what do you make of this? Because I said it was the last thing, but one more on this, because we have low voter turnout in some of these municipal elections. This is the level of government closest to the people. And still,
well, yeah, it's frustrating, and people don't realize the extent to which what happens at the local level really is critical, and it impacts their day-to-day lives in a way, in many situations, much more than what happens on the federal level. So people need to get educated and come out, but what you see is they're busy with other aspects of their lives. It's frustrating, but it's necessary and important. And I think people who really care about public policy are paying attention, and they will turn out, but that's still much lower numbers than we should have.
Yeah, we'd like to see that up for sure. Talk about a federal issue that has some interesting play in Utah, and let's talk about the United States Supreme Court. When President Trump was elected, that was something that Utahns put their finger on, said, I'm going to vote for him because I think that I know what kind of Supreme Court justice we're going to get from him. But what we're not talking about very often is how this very same thing plays in the state of Utah. We have a brand new Supreme Court justice in the state now. Governor Herbert just appointed Paige Peterson. What do we know about her, Courtney?
Well, she's had experience on a local level, a national level, an international level. She was raised in Cache Valley. She went to the University of Utah, Yale. She's really a well-rounded candidate. And she's going to replace Christine Durham, who's the only female Supreme Court justice on Utah's court right now.
Not only that, she was also a Hinckley intern, which we are thrilled about. But let's talk about Governor Herbert for a second. We have a caption I want to show with a very important statement from Governor Herbert. He said, "The judicial appointments I make are among the most significant and enduring things I will do as governor. This is particularly true with appointments to Utah's Supreme Court." Many people might not realize this, but Governor Herbert has picked 80 of the 116 state court judges that we have, including 4 of the 5 sitting Supreme Court justices. That's a huge number. That's 70% of all the judges. Is there a political implication to this? Is there something we should be thinking about more, Representative?
Well, that's a great question. And one of the things that we have in Utah that I'm very proud of is we have a process for picking our judges at the district and Court of Appeal and Supreme Court level. For the state courts, it's very different than the federal process. The federal process is the president nominates whoever he wants. There's an ABA vetting process, but that only comes after he's nominated someone. In Utah, that nominating process and the vetting process occurs beforehand. We have a judicial nominating committee that gets together and submits names to the governor, and he chooses from that list. Those individuals who form the Judicial Nominating Commission have done their job very well in the past. And credit to the governors, not just Governor Herbert, but other governors preceding him. They have all had a great commitment to putting the best people on the bench. I think it's a credit to our governors. I think it's a credit to the state of Utah. And I agree that this nomination is in that same line of really nominating top-notch people to the bench.
Senator, do you think that the process itself protects us from the political swings that might come? Because that's what we talk about at the federal level.
Utah has a phenomenal process, which retiring Justice Christine Durham, she was instrumental in helping set that up, we should note. As a former legislator, I can criticize the governor on anything and everything. I can't on the judiciary. I sat on the Judicial Confirmation Committee. When Paige Peterson came through to the district court, we were wowed. She'll sail through. I also sat on the Judicial Conduct Commission, which Representative King chairs. Our judges are great. They do a great job. Thank heavens we don't elect them. The appointment process is wonderful. Really a great judiciary.
Okay, Courtney?
Yeah, I would say that it goes back to Representative King's point that it really matters that you vote and that you show up, because these people that you vote for have a lot of say that lasts long after they're in office. So once Governor Herbert leaves, Paige Peterson's still going to be there
For a very long time. And we have a chance, of course, to vote on some of these, right? On retention elections for our judges. So we have some participation.
Yeah, that's part of the greatness of this process is we do get a shot. They have retention elections, and a few have been tossed, and they should have been tossed. But most are retained, but they do understand that they will have to face the citizens in an up or down election.
Other states have looked at Utah too and seen our judicial nominating and appointment process as a model. As Senator Urquhart said, there is an opportunity at times for people to weigh in with the retention elections, and if somebody's really not performing up to snuff, they can be voted down. But that initial process of screening out people who are there or maybe there for purely ideological purposes assures that we get well-qualified candidates.
All right, very good. We need to go to public lands for a moment. President Trump is going to come to Utah in December to shrink the size of the Grand Staircase, Escalante National Monument, and Bears Ears. Sounds like you have something to say about that already.
Yeah, no, I do. And Steve and I disagree, with all due respect.
You go ahead and I'll correct you after.
There's a big difference between shrinking by 5 or 10% nibbling around the edges and shrinking by 90%, which is a percentage that I've heard. Utahns will not tolerate a 90% shrinkage very well. I know what the polls say, but the reality is Grand Staircase Escalante was the process for doing Grand Staircase Escalante 20 years ago was awful. And I'll be the first to admit that. It was done through the Clinton administration, a Democrat. It's still awful, my partisanship aside. That was not true for Bears Ears. Bears Ears was a years-long process. The Obama administration took input from many, many different sources. They tried to get it worked out in Congress and were unsuccessful. And President Obama wanted it worked out in Congress, and they just weren't able to get there. So Bears Ears has some integrity to that process. I would be distressed if we had more than nibbling on the edges for either Grand Staircase Escalante or Bears Ears. Grand Staircase has been around now for 20 years. People have gotten used to it and adjusted to it. And in fact, the poll results show that people really don't want that shrunk as much as they're inclined to say shrink Bears Ears. But neither one of them should be shrunk significantly.
Thank you. Senator?
The delegated authority, Congress delegated to the executive authority to set aside certain monuments, and it's supposed to be the smallest area possible to protect the things they're protecting. 1.7 million acres for Grand Staircase, 1.3 for Bears Ears. These aren't small areas. I mean, what this is, these were huge trophies for the executive. And it didn't affect them in Utah. These were trophies that they were handing out to special interests elsewhere. I think a lot of these things should be protected, but it's a complete stretch to say that these are the smallest areas possible. We could easily cut both in half and still protect the things that should be protected, and all the rest, it falls into BLM management, which still, nothing is going to happen to the lands there anyways. I mean, it's increasingly difficult to graze cattle, to timber, to mine, all of these things. So I think losing the protections of the monument status, it's not really going to change management of the lands in a significant way.
Courtney?
Well, I think what's interesting here is we don't know what they're going to be shrunk to, right? Interior Secretary Hinckley hasn't really said exactly what those parameters will be. You know, the tribes originally wanted 1.9 million acres. Obama set 1.3 million acres, and now the Utah's leadership wants 120,000 acres. I mean, that's a significant downsize.
Go ahead.
Well, here's the interesting thing. So I actually signed the complaint for the State and Institutional Trust Lands Administration. We sued President Clinton on Grand Staircase Escalante. We won at the district court level, lost on appeal after I was off the case.
Oh, yes, of course.
We would have won had I been there. But the authority that's delegated, it is to designate the monuments. It's not to undesignate them. It's not to do away with it. So there will be a court challenge on this, and having really looked into this, having litigated it, I don't know what a court will do. The bigger the reduction is, the bigger the chance a court will say, no, you don't have the authority to do that.
Well, the other thing that I think is interesting is Rob Bishop's own proposal in PLI for Bears Ears.
Public Lands Initiative.
Public Lands Initiative, his congressional initiative to do the same thing about setting aside a certain amount of Bears Ears as was done eventually by Obama, actually had roughly the same number of acres. In fact, I think the Obama designation was a little less in terms of total acreage than the proposal from Representative Bishop and PLI. So, you know, I think that it's never good enough in terms of the smallness of the size for a lot of folks. And I think that, like I say, if you want to nibble around the edges, I don't like that, but I think that's more tolerable than a significant reduction in terms of 90%.
Okay, in terms of what we're willing to accept, one thing is very interesting. When Trump announces, he says to the press, "Orrin, I'm doing this for you."
Yeah.
What'd you make of that?
It's all personality based. It's all interpersonal for Donald Trump, and that is a frustrating thing. You know, we should be a nation of laws, not men. For Donald Trump, it's just the opposite. We don't care about the laws. It's all about me, and it's all about other men and women, my buddies or my enemies, either one.
Well, we had that's some good, strong talk there. We had, which leads to a very interesting conversation this week. The former Speaker of the House, John Boehner, unplugged, I guess, had some things to say about our own delegation from the state of Utah. Senator, what did he say, and why did he decide to pick on our people?
Yeah, you asked me because you think I'm the one who's going to say it. He said that Jason Chaffetz is a phony. He also called him a
something
else. And he said with Chaffetz, it's all about Chaffetz. So clear that Boehner doesn't have much respect for the person who happens to be leading all polls to be our next governor.
What you read about all of that, Courtney. What are Utahns thinking about that?
Well, you know, it's kind of interesting. Chaffetz is in a strange position. He kind of left early, so there's a little bit of bad taste among his constituents here, but he's hoping maybe to give himself a little buffer between now and possibly running for governor, that people forget about maybe those bad associations.
Maybe so. Sticking with the Trump administration in Utah for a moment, we had a couple of indictments come out this week on ties to what happened with Russia, and a new poll suggesting that about 50% of people in the country think that maybe a law was broken by Trump himself. And our Utah delegation has an interesting response to it. Let's start with you, Representative.
Yeah, one of the things that troubles me about those poll numbers that you referred to is that when they poll members of the Republican Party, self-identified Republicans, 79% say, I don't care if there's collusion proven between Trump and Russia, he's still my guy. That troubles me. It troubles me that we've gotten to a point where tribal identification in terms of our party affiliation means more than proof that someone colluded with a foreign enemy in the form of the country of Russia. I don't know what to think about this. I'd like to, the facts obviously will become important and they'll play out. I think most people believe that Robert Mueller has great integrity and that he is moving forward in a positive way. I'm encouraged by the fact that Senator Lee and Senator Hatch both said at various times that they supported Mueller moving forward without interference. I think that's very important. I hope that we get to the facts sooner rather than later.
Go ahead, Courtney.
What's interesting from these statements from our delegation is that they're commenting on Mueller. They're saying, you know, Mueller's doing a good job, he's investigating this, but they're not actually commenting on these indictments, these charges that came out against, you know, Trump's campaign advisors, foreign policy analysts. You know, they're not saying anything about the actual alleged wrongdoing.
Have you seen that, Senator? Because they are kind of going to the investigation. I would support it. If there's corruption, of course, I would be opposed to the corruption, but it hasn't really hit the president yet. Is that where we are?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm scoring this as a fight, round one, if this is Republicans versus Democrats, which unfortunately I think it is, rather than really getting it to corruption in our elections, round one goes to the Republicans. The indictments, they don't touch Trump and the campaign directly. Papadopoulos, he was a volunteer. Now people are thinking he might be rolled to testify against Trump, but so far they didn't land a glove on Trump. You compare that to what's coming out about the Democrats. Fusion GPS, the dossier paid for by the Clinton campaign, the DNC, the money that went to the Clinton family, the $500,000 after the Uranium One deal. You look at Donna Brazil's tell-all, which I think is going to be big, that the entire system was rigged for Hillary when she was running against Bernie. I think round one is a solid victory for Republicans.
You giving it to them?
That
Come
is
on, Representative.
astonishing. That is astonishing to me and depressing that Steve would say that, with all due respect. Donald Trump Jr. admits he tried to collude with the Russians but failed. I mean, all these other things that Senator Urquhart talks about, they don't have anything to do with attempts by the Democrats to collude with the Russians. That's
Brian,
exactly what happened.
No, you're so
Donald
much better
Trump
than
Jr.
this.
tried to collude with the Russians and failed.
Donald Trump had a meeting where they said they had dirt on Hillary.
Yeah,
what
and he
Hillary
wanted to
did,
get the
her
information.
campaign paid someone to go and
Not
work
Russians,
with the Russians.
Sure, they were doing op research. They were doing opposition research
Well,
to
how's
find
Donald
out.
Jr. not doing that? One meeting versus laundering money
If
through
you can't
Perkins
see the
Coie.
difference between these two, our tribal differences are way too great.
Money was laundered through Perkins Coie for
Okay,
this
go ahead,
report.
Courtney.
Let me
Courtney's
offer
gonna
a
help
little
moderate
middle
all of
ground
this.
here, right? Okay, so with these indictments specifically, these are against Trump campaign advisors. Paul Manafort is a Trump campaign advisor. So
He's
this
the
is on the
campaign
Trump
manager.
campaign.
unrelated
The
to the
campaign
campaign.
manager.
Keep going.
Well,
Please.
it's associated. It's this first kind of real evidence we have of Republicans working for Trump, trying to maybe get some dirt or some intel on Hillary Clinton. And again, this is all alleged. Nothing is certain
Working
yet.
with
But
Russia.
yeah.
And I think Courtney's right about this. This is the first step in the process. And if I'll give Steve this in the sense that the first indictments handed down by Mueller don't, clearly paint terms of impeachment against Donald Trump, but nobody's expecting that, and that's the first step in the process. I think things are going to get worse for the Republicans in time.
So you would say he gives round one to the Republicans, but would you say this is a prime opportunity for the Democrats, and it's just going to get?
Well, I mean, it's the first step in a process that is disastrous for both the country and Republicans and Donald Trump. The fact that we're in the process at all is remarkably bad for the country, for Republicans, and for Donald Trump. You can't point to anything that happened in the 8 years of the Obama administration that approaches the Mueller investigation.
We're not going to get away from some controversial topics. One last one we need to talk about. Senator, you wrote an op-ed recently about the death penalty.
Correct.
And we are likely to see some legislation coming to our legislature this session about it. Tell us what you said in this op-ed and why the timing is appropriate.
Yeah, it's time for Utah to repeal the death penalty. A lot of people are for it conceptually, but the reality is all we do is we deny the victims' families closure for decades. We have 9 people on death row. We're not about to execute anyone anytime soon. So we spend a lot of extra money on everyone who we charge with a capital crime. And all we do is we make them famous. The victims are forgotten, the families suffer, they become celebrities. We're not killing anyone anyway. There's no reason to retain the death penalty.
I'm with Senator Urquhart on this, and I give him credit for being a leader on an issue that traditionally conservatives and Republicans have found it difficult to lead on. The death penalty is very expensive. It's disproportionately applied in the sense that if you've got money, you're not going to get exposed to the death penalty, or if you are, you're not going to end up being sentenced to death. That's pretty clear empirically across this country and in Utah. The people who have the death penalty applied against them are disproportionately of other races, they're disproportionately poor, and the process by which we have to go through to get to a point where an individual like Ronnie Lee Gardner, who was the last person that we executed here in Utah, to get him to that point where they are executed is incredibly expensive. So there are many, many downsides to retaining the death penalty and not much good reason to keep it.
So we have both of you in agreement on that, and Courtney, I'm going to get to you in 1 second about that. So why hasn't this legislation passed when you introduced it?
Well, so I brought it up almost on a lark. A friend came to me in November, so that's really, tight against the legislative session. He said, "Why don't we repeal it?" I said, "Because I'm for it." So he laid out a few quick arguments for me. I'm like, dang, I got to think about this. So same thing, I went to my colleagues, "You're for the death penalty, right?" Let's talk for 3 minutes. Then they're like, dang, I got to think about this. And so when people really look at the real death penalty versus the theoretical death penalty, they move.
Courtney, this has been an issue that I think the Republicans and Democrats have had a little difference of opinion on for a little bit of time. We're not seeing that, at least with our guests here today. Is this a change for the Republican Party to see more Republicans across the country saying what Senator Urquhart is saying?
Yeah, this has been a long, Democratic issue that's kind of been championed by that party, and now we're seeing a shift on the Republican side to kind of come to a consensus. And that, I think, comes from, pro-life stance and fiscal responsibility on the conservative side, and now it's shifting.
So you think those arguments are carrying the day more than before?
Yeah.
Because we're not really talking about the punitive nature of it as much.
I also think that it's got a lot of appeal to libertarians who say, look, we don't trust the government generally. We're suspicious of whether they can do the job effectively when it comes to a lot of private enterprise issues. Why in the world should we trust the government to do it correctly when it comes to putting someone to death? And they've got a point there. We've executed, I believe, some innocent people in the past, and we've certainly freed a lot of people on death row with DNA testing and things like that would suggest that we need to stop the death penalty if we want to stop killing innocent people.
Okay, help us reconcile this just for a moment then, because the standard bearer for the Republican Party just this week tweeted to this person, this terrorist attack, and said, death penalty. He deserves the death penalty. See, the standard bearer is saying death penalty. Now Republicans go around.
Okay, that is the guttural, visceral response. But when people think about it, now I don't know if you can get President Trump to think about some of these issues, but when you get good Utah legislators to think about it, good Utahns to think about it, the death penalty just makes no sense.
Okay, that's where we're going to have to end it today. That's a very insightful conversation that we're going to have more during the legislative session. So thank you for that.
I hope it comes back to us.
Yeah. Well, that's it for tonight's show. The conversation continues online at kued.org/Hinckley Report. We'll see you next week. Thank you and good night.